And welcome back. For more than 125 years, Clinton College has remained dedicated to its vital mission of delivering a quality and affordable education to the most underserved students and offering a holistic, culturally adept curriculum. Guided by dedicated instructors, the college empowers its students not only to succeed, but also to excel in scholarship, leadership, and engagement. Joining us now to share their point of view, I am joined by the president of Clinton College, Dr. Lester A. McCorn. And Dr. McCorn, good to have you.
Hey, brother Jaime, how are you, sir? It's good to be with you.
Glad to be with you, man, and glad to have you share with us. We're talking about HBCUs, and as we're talking about HBCUs, I had on the show last week somebody who talked about the area of social justice, and talked about, we'll get to that later on, about education and how African Americans and the communities of color are faring. But I want to talk to you about, first of all, your beautiful college, Clinton College, and we want to thank you for sharing with us. And for somebody who doesn't know where you guys are located, tell us where you are.
Well, thank you. Clinton College is located in Rock Hill, South Carolina, which was, back in the day, sort of a sleepy rural town in South Carolina. It now is a booming suburb of Charlotte, North Carolina, which is about 20 miles north of us.
Yeah, and you're not too far away, so not too far away from the Queen City of Charlotte. But talk to me about your school, because as we look right now, education seems to have had its challenges in terms of enrollment. But more and more people are actually moving to HBCUs. Tell us about what you're finding.
Yeah, that's true. I think we're finding now that as our society is changing, the need for diversity in all of its forms is becoming more and more important. And there seems to be sort of a resurgence, a renaissance, if you will, in historically black colleges and universities, which, as you know, have been around forever. These schools were founded over 150 years ago, the oldest of the HBCUs. And as you've already mentioned, Clinton has been around for almost 130 years. And our education is so vitally important because it is not just academic. HBCUs do a really good job at social mobility and leadership development.
And when we talk about social mobility, obviously, to see students matriculate at schools and then go on to have successful careers, this is what HBCUs have long done and long standing done. When it comes to sports, the same way.
Yeah.
But I think recently we can all admit that having Deion Sanders down in Mississippi at Jackson State, that gave a great big look to HBCUs. What are people seeing right now when they look at HBCUs? Now Deion's gone, of course, but HBCUs have a bright light on them right now.
Absolutely. Especially when you consider some very prominent people who are in key positions. The Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, is a proud alumna of Howard University. My classmate and brother, Senator Raphael Warnock, we were in school together at Morehouse College in Atlanta. And there are many others. Obviously, we know in New York, you know Spike Lee, proud Morehouse alum, Samuel L. Jackson, and the list goes on. And so people are, of course, we've known about it in the African American community. There are very few people who have not been touched either directly or indirectly by HBCUs. Even if you didn't live in a city that had an HBCU, you had family members or you knew people who graduated from these prestigious institutions. So, there is a new spotlight on these schools, and especially in light of the affirmative action ruling that is now going to impact many students of color who have gone to predominantly white institutions. They're beginning to feel not necessarily welcome or celebrated in those places, and they know that they can be celebrated and get a quality education at an HBCU.
Yeah, well, let me take a spotlight right now and put the spotlight on Clinton and tell us about Clinton and what you have to offer. Obviously, you're right there outside the Queen City, so it's not hard for people to get to. You're right there, right outside of Charlotte, and people come right there from Charlotte and from all across the country, as a matter of fact.
That's correct. Yeah, we're right off of I-77 in South Carolina. Clinton College is a really special place. It didn't take long for me to fall in love with this school. I've known about Clinton for a long time because I'm an AME Zion preacher, and it's one of our schools. It was a junior college for most of its history. And a couple of years before I assumed the presidency, they had made a bold decision to become a 4-year liberal arts college. And so when I arrived, I kind of pushed them all the way in to that and began adding degree programs, not just to be adding programs, but finding programs that were relevant, that would meet the demands of the marketplace and prepare our students to be successful in all arenas of life. And right now, I'm really excited, Pastor Jaime, about our new nursing program. We've been approved for a Bachelor of Science in Nursing uh, in South Carolina, and we've already seen an amazing uptick in applications. We're admitting our first cohort this year. We're going to start with a cohort of 24 students so that they can get one-on-one attention and quality education. The students, of course, will come in as biology students slash pre-nursing, and by their junior year, they will have to apply to be into the nursing program, which will have some extra requirements. And then we're starting a cybersecurity bachelor's degree. So we've turned our library into a digital library in Learning Commons. It's probably the hottest space on campus right now. New furniture, new spaces for learning and interaction. And we're turning our computer lab into a cybersecurity lab. And you know how popular cybersecurity is right now. So we'll have students who will get training, certification, degrees, and hopefully gainful employment in the cybersecurity arena.
What does it mean for students to be able to attend the HBCUs, such as at Clinton College? Because when I look and I hear about nursing, and I hear about nursing schools, we could go to other educational institutions, and that classroom size can have a tendency of being a little bit larger. But when we talk
That's right.
about being right at HBCU, smaller class size, and for a smaller class size, there has to be some advantages to that.
Oh, it's a great advantage. I mean, our teacher to student ratio is probably 12 to 1, and in some classes it's even less than that. And yes, as you're alluding to, this makes a major difference in the quality of education that a student would receive. At HBCUs, your professors are not just academics, they're mentors. They're in many ways like mothers and fathers and aunts and uncles to these students. HBCUs really are villages. And for our students who are coming into an environment that can be very overwhelming and intimidating, it's important to have that personal touch that HBCUs provide. I can say for myself, I'm a poor kid from the projects of Worcester, Massachusetts, who got into Morehouse on a wing and a prayer, and it changed the entire trajectory of my life. I actually was homeless for many of my high school years. We went from pillar to post. And I tell the story often. I went from no house to more house. And what that did for me is invaluable. I wouldn't be where I am today if it hadn't been for that Morehouse experience. And that's what HBCUs do for our students.
So, in addition to having the academics, you also have the athletic portion. And I think sometimes students, when they want to make a decision about going to school, academics is definitely there, but we also know how real it is. Athletics plays an important part. I know Clinton College has seen a resurgence in their athletic department.
Yes, sir. Thank you for giving me a chance to brag on my Golden Bears. Yeah, our men's team went to the national championship last year. They were 5 points away from winning a national championship. We play in the NCCAA, which is the National Christian Collegiate Athletic Association. We're probably the smallest school in the association, but we were right there with the best. And our program has grown steadily over the last 5 years. We've won a couple of conference championships. We're recruiting players from all over the country. We got a few guys from New York who are playing at Clinton College. Our women's basketball team did the same thing. They went all the way to the Final Four. We had 3 first team All-Americans, and we had the coaches of the year, men and women, came from Clinton College. And the National Women's Player of the Year came from Clinton College.
So that's a pretty impressive lineup you have there. So as far as you're concerned, give us a little bit about your vision and what you're looking to see out at Clinton College for somebody that's out here in New York, in the New York area, New York City area, and thinking about possibly sending their son or daughter to an HBCU. Tell us, Clinton College, why?
Yeah, so you couldn't have come to a better place. I mean, we're a school that really is on the rise. We're growing in so many ways. I mentioned the academic programs, but we're also building virtually a new campus. We just completed the construction of an academic center for excellence, which houses our new nursing program. I mentioned the library. We're getting ready to build new residence halls. We're becoming what's known as a work college, which is really exciting for our young people. A work college gives you an opportunity to gain professional skills while a student that will in turn pay for your college education. The average student who graduates from a work college leaves school with less than $10,000 in student loan debt. That's a game changer. And as we talk about social mobility, one of the biggest deterrents for our young people is the cost of higher education. We are affordable. You could attend Clinton College right now, tuition, room, and board for $21,000 a year. And for a private school education, that's one of the best in the country.
Amazing. I want to talk about religion for a moment because the college, of course, connected to the AME Zion Church. But not only does your educational institution offer great classes, there's also a chance to really delve into the area of religion.
That's right. It is through and through. It's not an afterthought for us. Most of the people who work on campus have a very strong faith commitment. There are a lot of ministers on this campus, not necessarily pastors, but people who are involved in ministry. And we see what we do as a ministry. We do have a full-time campus minister who works with our students. And I just left our weekly gathering called the Beacon Forum. By the way, our tagline is we're a beacon of light. And so every Wednesday, the whole campus comes together for inspiration, information. And so we have guest speakers and we have a little bit of worship in there. We just hired a new director of performing arts who's adding both the sacred and the secular part of our tradition as African Americans in music and song and dance and all of the arts. So yeah, it's who we are as a community, and our students. Some of them come with no background. It's a different day where a lot of our young people didn't grow up going to church, so they're experiencing spirituality in a very profound way on the campus of Clinton College.
And so, for people who want to get connected to the college, find out more information about enrolling or possibly, sending their loved one there, what do they do?
Yeah, go to www.clintoncollege.edu. Follow us on all the social media forums. We're on X, Instagram, and TikTok. And we'll be happy to engage with you. Our admissions counselors are ready to answer any questions that you have. And if you're in the area, we'd love to have you stop by our beautiful scenic campus on Crawford Road in Rock Hill, South Carolina.
And again, Rock Hill is about how far from Charlotte?
About 20 miles south.
Yeah, so for somebody who wants to make that trek down there, they can possibly do that and see, you're close to a major airport and the college is right there. And as you said, you're finding now more and more students are coming from across the United States.
That's right, and other countries. I've got a volleyball player. I forgot to mention our volleyball team, which had its inaugural season last year. They look really good. We've got esports. We're getting ready to add softball and baseball and cross country track. We've got a volleyball player from Serbia. I got another student from Guam. I've got students from California, from the Midwest, from the South, and I mentioned New York. I've also got them from the DMV in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. So yeah, our students come from all over. The largest demographic, of course, is South Carolina and Charlotte in North Carolina, but we're now attracting students from all over the country.
And that question everybody's asking about scholarships, financial aid opportunities, break it down for us.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, we do really good at providing scholarships. So we do have presidential scholarships. We have service and learning scholarships. We just got a major grant for our STEM programs. So we are offering scholarships for students who are entering the STEM fields, which basically are full tuition scholarships. So yeah, there are many opportunities, and we work really hard with our students to make sure that that financing would not be the reason for them to not get an education.
Yeah. I was talking with a guest last week, and we were talking about, affirmative action and the affirmative action rule that really damaged, in my light, a lot of African Americans when it comes to going to Ivy League schools and also these other institutions. Your thought, if you will, on that
Yeah.
affirmative action rule. I had my say last week. I'll let you take it away today.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there are just forces in this country that want to take us backwards. And what we're seeing is the manifestation of years of just disappointment. We thought that we had these things settled in the 50s and 60s, especially with the Civil Rights Act. And, now there is an attempt to undo this because of these grievances that some people have about equity and equality and justice in America. And one way to undercut this is through education and affirmative action. Um, However, as detrimental as it will be to many students, I went, of course, I went to an HBCU undergrad, but I went to an Ivy League school for my graduate education, and I can honestly say that the education I received at Morehouse was just as good, right? So you don't lose anything at HBCUs. And so many of us are standing right now with our arms wide open, ready to welcome back our students who are not who have not been celebrated the way that they should, and they will experience the love and affirmation that you experience at a historically black college or university.
And when we talk about HBCUs, we know that, as you say, you're standing with your arms wide open, and that's a college president with his arms wide open. We also know the athletic directors of these coaches are standing with their arms wide open because let's face it, we're seeing right now Division I athletes make commitments to go to HBCUs. We've seen Division I athletes say, "Listen, you know what? I'm going to take my talents and I'm going to HBCU. I want to support my community. I want to be with students of my." And there is something special about the community experience. When you went to an HBCU, what was that community cultural experience like for you?
Oh my God, it was transformational. I'm from Worcester, Massachusetts, which when I was growing up, there might have been 5,000 African Americans in the whole city. I mean, I grew up in a predominantly black community, but it was diverse. When I got to Atlanta, I blown away. Atlanta is the Mecca, and when I was there, Atlanta was on the cusp of really blowing up. But I saw African Americans in leadership. I saw a black mayor. I saw black city councilors. I saw black business people. Obviously, I saw black athletes. I saw people in prominent places, and many of them would engage with us as students in the Atlanta University Center. I also had the wonderful opportunity of being a congressional intern to a new congressman by the name of John Lewis. You can imagine what that did for me. I didn't realize who he was at the time, but the impact that he had on my life shaped my sense of responsibility to community and to fight for social justice, because there was no other person who had fought harder than John Lewis. And to be exposed to that immediately impacted my ministry. I was a pastor when I was in college, and I led a whole protest in the city of Winder, Georgia, because I believed that's what I was supposed to do because of the impact that I had at Morehouse, the alma mater of Martin Luther King Jr., and being an intern to Congressman John Lewis.
Yeah. So for yourself, when you think about social justice, you've been very heavy in the fight for social justice, not just in the HBCU ranks, but as a preacher and a pastor, as an educator. Talk to me about where you see social justice right now, because it became I'll say, a more catchy word to the wider public, WIDER, wider public, when we were in the situation of George Floyd, when we were in the situation where we were at home during COVID. It seems as though social justice received the props that it deserved, and more people understood what social justice really was all about. It wasn't just about making noise. it was really about pointing the light and also bringing equity and equality.
That's right. Yeah, no doubt. For us, social justice is who we are, right? It's not an add-on. It's not something we do on the side. I'm a part of the African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church, as you are, and we're the Freedom Church. I grew up knowing about Frederick Douglass and Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman. My first oration as a young person was Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, who married an AME Zionite, by the way, Coretta Scott King. Coretta Scott grew up in the AME Zion Church in Marion, Alabama. And so the Black church tradition has taught us, and there's a through line of the Black social gospel from the very beginning to the present. I am concerned that many churches did begin to become more focused on the prosperity gospel and more concerned about consumerism and materialism and forgot about the real meaning of the fight. The fight for us was not so that we could have a cash, a crib, and cars. It really was about including the entire community, lifting everyone up. So it's my responsibility when I get my education and when I advance is to go back and lift other people up, but also to remove the impediments that keep people from going to the next level, systemic injustices and inequalities. And the gospel has a lot to say about that. And I don't know how we have, turned Jesus into some kind of mystic material Santa Claus when Jesus came fighting for justice. His trial sermon was, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because it has anointed me to preach good news to the poor, recovery of sight to the blind, setting free the captives." That is the gospel message. And we have to understand that. Now, to your point about the wider community finally waking up to it, it was kind of faddish because we see now 3 years later, we're going right back. Businesses, corporations that made promises, pouring money into equity programs, they're now pulling it back. And we're seeing through the governor of Texas and the governor of Florida and others who are trying to do away with equity programs, DEI programs, social justice programs, trying to do away with critical race theory and the learning of our true history. This is why the fight is not over. We've got to fight even more to educate our people and then demand that the greater society do what it should do in terms of its claims of justice and liberty for all.
Yeah. Tell me, as a president, when you look at your students and you see what's going on, how engaged are they in that social construct of dealing with social justice and being action oriented, community service oriented? Because if we listen to certain people, they'll paint a picture as though this isn't something the kids and young adults are interested in. But when I've spent time on campuses, I'm seeing a lot who are highly engaged when it comes to the area of social justice and social influence.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think because they have access to so much more information, they do have a better sense of what's going on in our country than maybe we did or even previous generations. We have access because of the internet and all of the information that is available. You have to discern and decipher what's true, what's legitimate, which is why I think education is so important. I mean, you need some people to help break that information down for you. But once students' consciences are pricked, they usually are motivated to do something about it. When we know that, I mean, the civil rights movement would not have happened without young people, right?
Right.
So I think now in this new leg of the race, Black Lives Matter, whatever you want to call it, our young people have to be supported and undergirded. I'm at the point in my life now where I'm moving out of the way. I want to be a mentor. I want to be a supporter and a cheerleader to the young people. And I tell them all the time that the time is now and they are the people to lead this next movement. So I'm encouraging them not to be so enamored again with materialism and consumerism and understand our African roots, the Ubuntu philosophy that says, I am because we are, and since we are, therefore I am. I have a responsibility to lift the entire village.
Yeah. So, again, before we get out of here, I want to give people an opportunity to know a little bit more about Clinton College. We spoke about it earlier on in the show. But for somebody who's out there watching right now and saying, listen, you know what, I've heard this man, and yeah, I want to hear more about the educational institution. How do they go about doing that once again?
Yeah, once again, check us out at clintoncollege.edu and all of our social media platforms. We're on X, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on TikTok. Check us out. You'll see our admissions counselors out there. Interact with us. We'll be happy to answer any questions. And as I mentioned earlier, I'd love to have you come visit our beautiful scenic campus in Rock Hill, South Carolina, just 20 miles south of downtown Charlotte, North Carolina.
Give us a little bit of insight into staff and yourself. I mean, I want to thank you, first of all, for taking the time and being with us. We got a couple more minutes left, but I want to take us inside. I mean, obviously, it's about a few days away before the semester starts. What's it like there for you and your staff and on the campus?
Yeah, we're actually in the semester. We start early. We started last week because we let our students go before Thanksgiving. That might be a great selling point for some of you all. Our semester ends before Thanksgiving, so they have the entire break from Thanksgiving till January to find a job if they want to. That's what I did when I went home. I found a job and made a little money, but also they could just relax until they come back in January. But I have an amazing team. I mean, people give me a lot of credit for the progress that Clinton has made, but I tell them all the time we would not have done this without the amazing team that I have. Bishop Herbert Crump, who was the founding pastor of the Freedom Temple Ministries and the presiding bishop at one time of the Mount Calvary Holy Churches of America. He's retired from both of those posts at a very young age. He's younger than I am, and he's an alumnus of Clinton College. And I tapped him to be our vice president of institutional advancement. He's already making a major impact. I have a cabinet of 9 persons who are vice presidents and associate vice presidents who serve in the administration. And then our faculty is amazing. We've added some new faculty. We've got the largest percentage of folks with terminal degrees than we've ever had. Our STEM program alone has 75% faculty who have PhDs. So that tells you the quality of faculty we have. And we mentioned our athletics program. We just hired a new athletic director who's coming on board. And we have men's and women's basketball, volleyball, and then, of course, esports, which is growing in leaps and bounds. And let me tell you about esports, Pastor Jaime. You may know this, but esports is probably the only sport that you can go out and actually make some money without doing the NIL thing.
Yeah.
Right. These students compete and they're winning literally hundreds and thousands of dollars in these competitions in esports. So if you're a gamer, you come on and join us. We're also looking at developing whole degree programs around gamification. So because STEM is growing so much, I feel like that's the next big wave for us at Clinton College. So that gives you sort of a snapshot of who we are. And I'll add this too, that Clinton College has become a major player in the city of Rock Hill. There's a whole new master plan for developing the south side of Rock Hill, which has been systemically disinvested and disenfranchised. We're now leading what's called the Clinton Connection Action Plan, which brings all of the organizations on the south side together for a master plan for economic and community development. And Clinton College is at the heart of that plan. In our, and I should have mentioned this earlier, in our master plan, we're also building what's called the Beacon Center, which is a large complex for athletics and recreation on the campus of Clinton College, because we got to have a great arena for these wonderful sports teams we have, but it's also going to be available to the community. And we're partnering with the YMCA of Upper Palmetto to provide programs for our community. So we really are a community-centered HBCU.
Well, I want to thank you, Dr. McCorn, for being with us, sharing a little bit about Clinton College at HBCU. That is definitely worth spotlighting and definitely a great conversation when it comes to social justice. I know you've been on the forefront and continue to be on the forefront for that, even in your academic capacity. So thank you so much for being with us, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Pastor. All the best to you.
All righty. Listen, we are taking a quick break, but guess what? We'll be back with more right after this.